Hi, Coach Mike here for the D3 podcast, Trust the Process. On this week's episode, we have the CU Tri team represented by Coach KJ, Annie Meter, and Lily Harris, both who finished in the top 10 at Nationals a couple weeks ago, securing the women's team national title for the Collegiate Club National Championship, which is awesome. Good to see CU back to its glory days. This is a great conversation. Talk a little bit about collegiate triathlon, the races leading into nationals, new season with a new coach, and how it all, played out for the team. Great to see, the great spirit and camaraderie at nationals, and this team definitely exemplified that. So I think it's a great listen, and I hope you enjoy it, and please share it with your friends. Hi, Coach Mike Ritchie here with D3 Multisport Trust the Process podcast, and I have Coach KJ from the CU Buffaloes, Annie Meter, and Lily Harris, members of the National Championship Women's Team. Welcome, everyone.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, how are you guys doing? You still on a little bit of a high from the race last weekend, 2 weekends ago?
Definitely.
Awesome. So I'm going to start with Coach. Coach, first year with the team. I know that obviously the team has always done well, and just tell me a little bit about, just getting to nationals, because I will tell you the first time I went, I was completely overwhelmed with the number of kids, managing all the kids, and just the energy there. Like adrenaline I couldn't sleep at night. I mean, it was wild, So tell me your experience with just the whole thing, the travel and all of it, right? I mean, it's just.
Yeah. I mean, we have some really incredible leaders on the team, and fortunately they do all of the travel planning. And so I really got to just show up and blindly follow the kids' leadership, and they're really not kids, right? They're young adults, but made the travel logistics a lot easier than I had expected originally. So grateful for that. We had 2 days of travel where our draft legal team traveled first, and then our Olympic team traveled second. I traveled with the Olympic team. Coach Dave traveled with the draft legal team. And super easy. Once we got to the venue, energy was palpable. It was really, really cool to see so many schools, so many really strong teams there, and excited for the weekend ahead. Yeah, it was a really, really, really cool and surreal experience. First time being at Collegiate Club Nationals. Just one of kind. Really a one of a kind experience.
So Lily, you've been on the team for a few years now?
Yes, this is my third year on the team.
Third year, awesome. And so have you been to nationals before?
Last year was my first year. This year was my second, yeah.
Awesome. And how did you place last year versus this year?
Last year I was 14th, I think. And then this year I came in 9th place.
Awesome. And what was the time difference in your time? I know the courses were different, but
I have no idea.
I love it.
Definitely improvements, I know, within each of the disciplines.
Awesome. And Annie, I know you had a pretty big improvement from last year to this year as well, right?
Yeah, I think I was 38th last year, and I was second this year.
Well, that's a big difference. And so was some of that just like underperformance last year? Were you hurt, mechanical? Like what happened and what was the difference?
Oh, I mean, there's a lot of things I can attribute to the difference. I think KJ and I mean, there's a lot of things. Again, I could list a lot of things, but KJ and I keep going back to the team and having fun with what I'm doing. I think I took a lot of things too seriously. And we just looked at each other and said, let's try to make this fun for me. And it worked really well.
Yep. Have fun. That's always the big thing for sure. Tell me a little bit, let's just back up a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about regionals. How did that go overall for the team? And Lily, I'll start with you on that. How did that go? Regionals seems to be for CU just kind of like a checkbox thing where CU goes down there, kind of dominates. But how was it this year with, Coach KJ there, and what was the vibe like, and, how did the team do?
Yeah, regionals was a lot of fun, actually. It was a bit challenging. I had some issues leading into that race. And I think for the whole year, but a lot of it I saw during that race was kind of this whole year, but me as specifically, I embodied the phrase like champions adapt. And I mean, hours before the race, the swim got shortened. We showed up, we didn't know if there was going to be a swim, and there was all this freak out. And then it ended up being a 400 swim. and people were panicking. People were like, yes, that's awesome. But I just wanted to start the race. Didn't know if I was going to finish, just started. And then I got on the bike, and Annie was right there, and we rode together the whole time. Some boys would ride with us, but me and Annie were there on the bike start to finish, and it was so fun. And I don't think I've ever had that much fun in a race. And I mean, the top 4 girls in that race, we finished just minutes apart. And going back to the results from like Oktoberfest, the first couple of races of the season, we were all so spread apart. And then seeing at that race, we were so close together, like finishing minutes. Like it was just awesome. And that was when it clicked, like, oh my gosh, we are so strong.
That is awesome. And that's a hairy course too, in terms of the bike. It's got some 90-degree turns at the bottom of the hills. It's got some steep downhills, right? The only real good stretches coming in, you get those little bit of rollers, but it's relatively straight ahead and not too many turns, but that can be hairy. Annie, what was your take on, that your first race with the team, or had you raced in the fall?
I had raced Triathlon with the team, but it wasn't an official team race. So that was my first official team race. And the highlight was definitely just being with the team and traveling with all of them. Like this team has an energy that's really unmatched. I've been on a lot of different teams, and this has to be one that brings the most energy and joy to the sport. And so that was what really stood out to me. I don't think I could gauge how good or fast or bad anybody was, the way Lily could, since she's been on the team for a little bit. But the thing that I did gauge was just how awesome it was to be on this team. And how I wanted to perform for them and cheer for everybody and wait until the last person came in, because that's just what we do. So,
and you make your little tunnel and they all run through, right? So, yeah. So, what do you think that? So you ran in college as well, right? Ran and then did triathlon. Is that right, Annie? Okay.
Yeah.
So what do you think the difference was? Was it, you have a bunch of kids that, some of them are pretty recreational, but you have the top, third of the team, maybe it's, 20, 25 kids that are pretty serious about it. Was it the balance of that, or do you think it's something else that brings that energy?
Well, I think what I noticed was, especially that top third on the team, yes, they're very serious about what they do, and not even the top fast third, but the other 2/3 are pretty serious about what they're doing too. But along with that seriousness, nobody's serious. Like if you get what I'm saying, everybody's there to everybody's there to have fun, and everybody comes to every practice, and so you can consistently see your friends every single day. And I mean, they become friends. And so I think that mix of everybody's there because they want to take this sport seriously, but also because they love hanging out with each other and goofing around is just like such a wonderful combination.
Keep it light but serious, right?
Yeah, and I think sorry.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I think just in like my athletic history, I've been around people who are really, really serious. And it's led to conditions that aren't super conducive to performance.
Right. Success and performance anxiety and all that stuff, right? I think we've all seen that here and there. Coach, when you got to have Sue, obviously you've been coaching the team, for a few months at that time. You see them practice, you see them at serious bricks and, the time trials and all that stuff. Like, were you surprised at the performances, or were you kind of like, wow, these kids really bring the energy and the performance? Like, did that surprise you, or was it kind of what you were expecting? Okay. So when you got to Havasu, like you had coached the team for a couple of months and you've done some time trials and some serious workouts. When you got to Havasu and it all came together, did that kind of surprise you, or was that kind of what you expected?
A little bit of both, which is probably like the worst answer, right? Like in some ways you're expecting growth and development throughout a season plan. But also like being first time with the team and first competition, really, like there's a lot of anxiety on a coach's side, being like, I sure hope that they feel prepared and they're ready to race and do what they know how to do. I think it was definitely surprising, like seeing the strength and the depth on both teams. Like that was really exciting, and really reassuring. But I mean, from both like performance wise and team camaraderie wise, like seeing how the team really developed going into and coming out of Havasu was really, really cool leading indicator. for how we
Awesome.
were going to go.
Awesome. So Lily, back to you. Did you race more than just the Olympic? Did you do the DL or the mixed relay?
I did the mixed team relay. Annie and I both did that at nationals.
Okay. And how did that go for the team?
It was awesome.
Then we got
Annie and I
second.
both, we got third.
We got third. Okay. I was watching that. I was watching through USAT. I was watching that, and you guys were further back, right? Like seventh or something.
Way beyond that.
We started, all of our legs were so strong. I mean, Annie and I were talking about it before the race, like before we even left, and we were like, we are gonna crush it. Like, we were scared to say anything, to jinx anything, but we were like, wow, this is a strong team. And then we started out, our first guy did really awesome. He got us in like top 25, something like that. And then I did the swim, got on the bike, dropped my shoe, and was like, oh my gosh, I messed it up. We're screwed. Like, made the wrong choice. I shouldn't have done it. And then got on the bike, like, got off the bike, grabbed my shoe, put it back on, spent so much time, whatever, but somehow got us into 10th place. And then our next guy went the wrong way, missed the timing mats, a whole bunch of, I don't even know, but somehow got us into 7th. Not somehow, he's fast. He's crazy fast. And then Annie ran us from 7th to 3rd place. But the best moment, our third guy, he was out biking, running, whatever. I see Annie, I look at her, and we just had that moment, was like, it's gonna happen. And Annie just had an incredible performance to bring us into 3rd place.
That's awesome. So Annie, how is coming from a running background? How is your swim? Is it a strength or is it just kind of okay, or do you swim pretty well?
KJ, do you want to answer that?
You can personal supplement if needed.
I think I've always thought of swimming as my weakness. Ever since I started triathlon, I was like, swimming is my worst, and it will always be my worst. But I came out of the water, well, I led the swim in the Olympic for the first 800, and then decided that was probably a bad idea, and came out of the water 6th with the top swimmers. And so I think it's up with my bike and run, and it's no longer a weakness of mine.
That's awesome.
That's thanks to Coach KJ.
Well, the reason I'm asking you,
I don't know that. I give you stuff to do, Annie, and you go do it. Right? Like, I'm not the one doing the work. I'm just there to support. But yeah, both of these two athletes, like swimming's hard.
Swimming's
right?
hard.
Especially when your coach is a swimmer. Loves to give you like some silly stuff to do. Swimming's really hard, and it's mentally a big ask for folks. And these two just really dug in and both really worked on swim all season, and it showed a lot.
That's awesome.
So
cool. You guys saying that the race got cut short. When we did nationals in 2010, it was in Lubbock and it was pouring rain and it was flooding, and they cut the swim. And I had these two kids that were high school runners they were like 32, 33 minute 10Kers, and they couldn't swim. Like they would swim 25 minutes and, which wasn't at the level they needed to be at. And so I would give them 4Ks and 4K swim, and they would go do it like after studying at night, just the two of them. And we get to nationals and I'm like, look, this is going to pay off. This is going to pay off. And we get there and they cut the swim down to like 600. And they're so mad at me.
That's awesome.
And I'm like, look, you're going to run great. Like, you're going to run awesome because your fitness is so high. And they did. It was great. But just, that stuff always happens, and you just got to be prepared for it, right? I mean, it's one of those things. And Andy, the reason I was asking you that is because, being a runner, I know you have a strong engine, and swimming isn't about it's part of the engine. That's some of it, but it's technique, right? You can take, the guy who just won the Boston Marathon, put him in a pool, and, he's not going to be able to swim as well as, you or I or Coach KJ or Lily. So it's just one of those things where I think the technique and doing the things that coach is asking you to do is really important. So it's, kudos to you for doing that. So, all right, well, take me through the Olympic race. Lily, do you want to give me your version of how it all went down?
Sure.
Okay.
I had a little bit of a different experience. I came out of the water 69th, so was a little bit farther back. Might have felt like I was in the front and then got out, and I think I heard Coach Dave say, "You're top 40," and hoping to have a top 10 finish. I was like, I kind of had that same moment in the mixed relay, like, there goes my race. But got on the bike, and shortly onto the bike, I heard some spectator say top 15. So that kind of, there was that shift, like, okay, I'm in the race again. And just, the bike was really tough. I kind of took the last month leading up to the race off healing a concussion. So wasn't really doing a lot of training, and felt it a little bit on the bike, being such a challenging course. And then got off the bike, ran into transition, saw another teammate. And I mean, I had intentions to put on sunglasses, put on a hat, put on some socks, be comfortable. But I thought, this teammate is a strong runner. I want to stay up with her, have her pace me. So I just took my shoes and ran. Had an awesome run. Just felt it was a hard course, but I think I had like the same time as last year's course, which was far easier. And yeah, just an awesome, and hearing like when I crossed that finish line that all 4 of our scorers were in the top 10, it was just an amazing experience, and I was just so proud of the whole team.
That's awesome. So obviously you've got some doubts going to the start line if you haven't trained like you would, normally would with a concussion, obviously. So you had to rely on your fitness, right? That's huge. And this is something I'll tell you, and I tell people this almost every day, like what you did in the last week, yes, it's important, but what you've done the last 5, 10, however many years, like that's all still in there. Your body knows how to race, right? You just need to get to the start line, have a little confidence. And it's that switch. And now you have that switch the rest of your life to know that you did it now and you can do it again, right? So that's huge. It's a huge takeaway, huge, which is awesome.
We had a lot of support from my coaches reminding me that the fitness is there. I mean, one time they even pulled out and showed me proof, like, you have the fitness.
Right. I love it. I know. I mean, that is coaching. And, and I always say, coaching is 2 things. One, getting people to do more than what they think they're capable of. And 2, get them to believe that they can actually do it, right? So physically 1 thing, but mentally really believe that they can do it. So that's the fun part of coaching. That is, 100% the fun part. At least that's what I get out of it. I love seeing people achieve things that they think, I can't do that. Yes, you can. Little push, a little kick in the butt sometimes, whatever it is, like you'll get there, So, all right, Annie, how about your version of nationals and how all that went? You took us through the first 800 of the swim.
Yeah, I got you through the first 800. Well, so I actually have to start before the start,
Okay.
because I walked over to the start line with Coach KJ, and KJ looks at me and says, "I want you to just go for it. I know you've been holding back a little bit because I wasn't really sure what I was doing in these races, but I want you to just go for it in the swim and the bike, and whatever happens in the run happens." And so I had that in my head. But I hit the swim, and I've never gotten out that well in a swim before. At both the nationals I've done, I've gotten absolutely pummeled in each of the swims. And so it came as a surprise to me when I kept looking up. I was like, where are the pink caps? And they were just there. And so that was really came as a surprise to me. And I got out of the water 6th and ran through transition. In transitions, something that I've learned is to try to just stay calm. And like, I want to move fast, but the fastest I'm going to move is if I'm calm. And so my transitions actually feel fairly slow because I am calm. And so transition went smoothly. I got on the bike, and I don't really know if I knew what place I was in. I guess I knew I was 6 out of the water, but you never know what happens in transition. And so I just started picking off people. I tried to find women to pick off, but you can't really be too sure as you're going through the crowd of men. And I think there were some people on the course that were telling me where I was. I heard I was in 3rd. I heard I was in 12th. Like, I was pretty confused. And by the time the bike went really well, I tried to just go as hard as I could. And at one point I was actually going back and forth with a woman from Arizona. And this woman from Arizona was going hard, but it turned out to be a man. And so that worked out really well in my favor, actually. And I actually saw a ton of my friends on the bike, like teammates from the past and teammates on CU, and so that was super fun. That was actually a really fun part because you get words of encouragement and from your teammates and from past teammates. And then it was a little scary coming off the bike because we come down this big hill and it's kind of narrow and there were a bunch of guys surrounding me. But then I saw Coach KJ at transition and I was like, and I kind of just nodded at KJ. I was like, yeah, this is awesome. And then transition went well. And coming into the run, I actually didn't know what place I was in. I sort of assumed I was in top 10.
Was
but
it
at that
out and back or was it a loop course?
It was a loop course, so like
Okay.
we never really saw.
Yeah.
Well, the bike course was a loop course, but I wasn't really. I head down, going for it. But it turns out I was leading off the bike by about 35 seconds, and I think the run went really well. I didn't have many people to work off of. I worked really hard up the hills and tried to maintain pace down the hills. And as I came around this last corner, I saw Faith Duncan, who's a really phenomenal athlete, coming up behind me. And so I took off up that last hill and gapped her, but down the hill, my legs gave out down the finish chute, and she got me in the last 3 seconds. So
that was first and second.
Huh?
That was first and second.
That was first and second. So
Oh man, yeah, that's hard. That's hard. Well, now you got some motivation to train for next year, right?
yeah, absolutely. Gotta train for that finish line.
Yeah, he'll repeat with her name on it, right? Just put it on there and just
yeah.
whatever. Awesome. And Coach, what was your experience from the whole thing? And just in terms of, seeing where the girls were throughout the day, and then kind of as the race developed, you're probably thinking, wow, that we're doing really well, right?
Yeah. Well, so what these two they sort of alluded to it, but didn't really get into detail. This is a really challenging course. The swim was, I think it looked pretty smooth. Obviously I wasn't out on the water, but then as soon as you leave the water, you're heading uphill until the turnaround on the bike course. Then you're heading downhill until T2. And then you run downhill for 2 miles. And then you've got a couple of real short, punchy hills with very steep climbs. Similar elevation profile to Magnolia for folks that are familiar with Magnolia Road in Boulder, and then a downhill finish the last 2K or so. Like your quads are going to scream basically the entire race. Coming out of the water, our women's team was really towards the front. As Annie kind of mentioned, it's kind of hard to tell. There's 2 waves of men in front of the 2 waves of women. 2 seated waves of women, but like you could pick them out, right? We got some feedback post race, no more pink caps for women, but it does make it easy for your coaches to find you. But yeah, so coming out of the swim, we could tell our women's team really swam really, really well. Our set or 6 in the top in the first wave, like really crushed it. I was at the dismount line for the first couple of women across the line. Saw Annie get off the bike and like did get the little head nod, but unfortunately missed a couple right after her because there was a crash at the dismount line and I was just the first responder there. So I was the first one there. So then I was basically blind, couldn't be texting Coach Dave and Jesse out on course. And so I got on my little bike and I rode as fast as I could out to the single out and back on the run course, and was standing next to actually the Cal Poly coach. And I watched Annie go by, and then I watched Anna go by, and then I watched Casey go by, and then I watched Lily go by. And he's like, that was a lot of your girls in the top 10. And I was like, that was top 10. Like, this is awesome. I was frantically counting, and coaches kept asking me questions. Spectators kept asking me questions. And I was like, no, I'm using my fingers. I need to figure out where we're at. So I really didn't have any idea until I started seeing them on the out and back, realizing like, holy cow, these women crushed it.
That's so impressive.
So,
yeah.
like could see success throughout the day, but
yeah,
kind of
that's incredible.
then. Yeah.
Well, anything else you guys want to add to the story, the myth, the lore? I mean, national champions, that's a big deal. and your name's in the history book, so that's pretty cool. Yeah. Oh yeah, one more thing. I'm supposed to ask you about this. What happened with the Spirit Award?
What happened?
You guys
Lily,
won
can
it?
you tell us what happened?
We won it.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
It was
CU, I mean, that's a big deal for the Buffaloes, just because, you go there with the intention of doing well and the process of training to do as well as you can at nationals. And the fun part is always a big part of it. But I don't know that we ever focused on the Spirit Award, but I know you guys did. And that's pretty impressive. So congrats. I mean, that's huge. You got some pretty big schools there. Cal, Cal had a big team there, like 75 people, right? And you got Wisconsin had like 50, 60 kids. And I mean, that's a lot of competition. So you guys must have been really loud.
Yeah, up in a lot of ways.
I think that was the biggest shift for this year was the focus. It was on our performance and triathlon and all that, but the culture, there was just a huge shift this year. And I think we had all the pieces. We were just missing that one piece that was KJ, and it just worked so well. And the officer board, especially our president, vice president, and we had two awesome coaches that just it scared me a little bit. I was like, we're focusing on fun, the culture? No, we gotta be fast. But it was just, everyone just got along so well and wanted to have fun and be fast. And I've never seen the last 2 years, I've never seen that many numbers, especially that dead period in December, November after Pumpkin Man. I was like, oh, here we go. I'm going to be the only one at practice. And I mean, the first couple of months, there were some times where I was the only girl or there were two girls at practice. And then every practice, from Pumpkin Man on, was just you saw the numbers growing and all the girls were there. And it was those Tuesday runs that I remember that the last people running were the girls. And I was like, this is awesome. We have it this year.
That's so cool. And the numbers, right? Like that, the rising tide floats all boats. So, I mean, it's just that energy that brings everybody up. And that's really cool. That's special. That's special. And it's hard to replicate that. So try to bottle it if you can and use it next year, right? What the formula is now. So you got to try to bottle it.
Yeah. I mean, and especially with that rising tide, right? We've talked a lot about our top 4, our scorers being in the top 10. Mm-hmm. Our top 6 women were in the top 36.
Yeah,
right. So our fifth place was 14th and 6th was 36. That's awesome and just really, really cool. And the depth it just doesn't stop.
Yeah. Well, you'll grow it now. That's the thing. That's the thing. That's awesome. Well, congratulations to everybody. I really appreciate you guys coming on. This was really awesome. If you ever have a question, let me know. Happy to help. And Coach, stay in touch, please. And
absolutely.
Let me know what's going on this summer. So, well, thank you, everybody. I really, really appreciate you guys coming on. So thank you and congratulations again.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
See you at BAM this summer.
Thanks for listening, everyone. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Trust the Process. If you have a question on anything related to triathlon, please send me an email at mike@d3multisport.com. We'd love to hear from you. Make it a great day.